Yeah, Steve's the kind of guy you want around the campfire, crack a beer and just listen to him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's like sitting around your
Maybe crack another beer because you had to listen to him.
Oh my God. Not again. Shut him up.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of What Drives You Driver Edition Podcast, Episode 3. I am one of your co-hosts, Cory and Lee. I have with me Lee Polson and our special guest, I'm told the most interesting man in the world, maybe just this room, Steve Runke. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I mean, we brought you in here today because through the office, I've heard some stories. So I guess first off, so Steve's one of our safety managers here. Was a driver for us. Now is one of the safety managers, and just around the office, I'm hearing stories about times on the oil rig and all kinds of stuff. So I guess honestly, if you just want to get into that and what was that like, and tell us a little bit about that.
Okay. I spent 7.5 years working for an oil field company. Our job was to go, sorry about the cough, we just did the wing test before this. Our particular task was to go out and flow a well once they drilled through an area that they thought had hydrocarbons in it. We would rig up equipment, flow it to the surface, separate oil, gas, and water, and then eliminate whatever we'd have to burn off if we did make anything that was hydrocarbon. It was a tough job on days when, in the middle of July, 100 miles out in the Gulf when it's 100 degrees and the sun's beating down on an iron deck. But all in all, it was interesting. Between bad boat rides and questionable helicopter rides. And
does it get pretty spooky at night? Is it pitch black or?
Yeah, depending. I mean, it's just like here. You're 60 miles out. The only lights around or whatever are from the rig. The spookiest stuff was when you got storms. Yeah. Or you'd see a water funnel.
So what do you do when there's a storm? Like they're not flying you off there, are you? Or if it gets bad enough, do they take everyone out by helicopter? Or?
Yeah, in 1969, Chevron lost a helicopter in a hurricane because they waited too long. So their policy changed then that when a hurricane entered the Gulf, came past Cuba and got into the Gulf, every operation they had shut down and the people were brought in. Okay. Depending on what company you worked for, some of them waited a little bit longer. Some of the smaller ones, you'd end up coming in on a boat, not on a helicopter, which can be a little dicey when the weather gets bad and the seas get rough. But we came in from a job on the East Coast. It would have been winter 82, I think, or 83, and had a late season hurricane coming up, a winter storm coming offshore, and on a 180-foot workboat had 55-foot seas, and 10, 12 hours of pretty nasty. Most of us all took Dramamine, so you hoped you passed out. Were able to sleep through it, but it was interesting because the boat would rock one way, another way, and then it'd go up over the swell and down into the trough. And when it hit, the hull rang like a church bell. I mean, you laid in bed and prayed that the boat didn't break in half because 100 miles out treading water in 39-degree water wouldn't be fun. But
just when everybody thinks I-94, I-70's traffic's bad, just remember this story.
Yeah.
And it's a picnic.
Yeah.
How did you ever get into the oil field?
My mother passed away in January of 81, And my sister and brother-in-law who lived in Louisiana were up for the funeral. And my brother-in-law and I started talking. He was telling me about the oil field and how good the jobs were, how good the pay was. We lived in Crivets, just had my wife and I and the daughter, and didn't have anything to lose. So it was like, okay, we took Easter vacation, went down there. I went and applied at a few different places. This particular company, because the manager, excuse me, with howls, the manager was from Pennsylvania, and he said anytime he got an application that the address was north of the Mason-Dixon line, he called for an interview right away because of the work ethic people up here have. And I interviewed with him, interviewed with the Canadian manager of the district that I started to work for. And 5 weeks later, I moved down there and started doing it. We spent 3.5 years in Louisiana, a year in Houston, and 3.5 years in California before we moved back to Green Bay.
Did you like live on the rig then, or you're just going back and forth once it was ready?
Yeah, when you went out to do a job, you were on the rig until the job was done, and depending on what information they wanted, the test, and if we had problems or it went well, it could be 3 days, or it could be that job we came in with. The weather was bad on the East Coast, took us 21 days just because between different tests they were doing, and it was a 12,000 foot well. Every time they have to go in and out of the hole with pipe, it's 12, 14 hours. So 23 days, that was the longest I think I was ever out on a job. Rig crews usually work 7 and 7 or 14 and 14.
So what do you do? Like you work 12 hours, you're probably tired, but like what do you do on a rig for your 12 hours off? Like what is there to do? Like
sleep and eat, watch TV. There is most of them, the bigger ones, the further out you go, the bigger the rig got. And it was either a jack-up rig, which is a barge that has legs that they'll tow out with tugboats, and when they get over the location, they lower the legs to the bottom and then jack the barge part out of the water, usually 45 to 60 feet. The real deep water stuff, they have what's called a semi-submersible. They have like pontoons and then legs that come up to the rig floor, and they either take those on a big ship that actually is underneath and carries it out, or they tow it with the pontoons almost at the surface, and then they're anchored off from the corners. And they all have food, usually 6 noon, 6 at midnight in the galley. So if you wanted to eat, you just went in and ate. They have a big TV room where the crew that's off shift, you can watch movies, or if they had satellite, you'd watch TV. Showers. So
Get a lot of good fishing in?
I didn't ever do any fishing, but I saw a lot of stuff caught. Everything from amberjack, tuna. We saw barracuda. I never saw barracuda caught. Sharks. There were guys that were fishing sharks. And a moray eel. I had a job where a guy caught a 10-foot moray eel. Supposedly it tastes just like pork chops. I don't know. I didn't eat.
was that available in the galley too?
The cook actually came out and chopped it up himself. He was all excited.
Did you enjoy that lifestyle? Like, and then I guess how did you transition once you kind of got out of that? Like, what's the transition like to a different job? And is it hard to give up that money?
I worked actually on the crew offshore until we moved to California. I was a crew leader the first 6 months, and then I became a field service manager for the district, and then district manager. And that's what I finished up with them as a district manager. We moved back in '88, and I was in business with my brother in a graphic arts company here in town. We had that for 15 years. And that was through the course of going from manual graphics to computer graphics, converting over to, now like scanning in. And at the end of the 15 years, because it was becoming so digital and so easy for everybody to do it, our portion of the business was getting less and less. So I sold the company to my vice president, and I had driven some before we went to the oil field job. So I decided to get back in driving. I bought a dump truck, ran that in Green Bay for 3 years, and because there isn't a lot of work in wintertime, I would drive for my neighbor who owns a refrigerator trucking company, and got to the point where, you know what, if I'm gonna be gone all week long all winter and make money for him, I decided to do it myself. I bought a tractor. I hauled dry freight for 3 years and propane for the last 5, and then I came to work here.
So what was your first tractor? Was it cab over or?
My first tractor way back in, I did a
You have
year
to
and a
pedal from the floor.
pretty much. I did a year and a half with North American Van Lines,
Okay.
and I had a single axle or cab over Ford,
Yeah.
238 Detroit with a 10-speed that going uphill, you had trouble. The most frustrating part back then was it was just when Cat was coming out with their 4 1/4 horse mechanical, I think it's B motor. And I remember going north in California up through Donner Pass on 80 and climbing the hill with that little truck, and these guys with the 4 1/4 double stacks going by you like you're backing up. But then I didn't start driving again till, well, I drove a little bit. We had land equipment with the oil field company that I would drive out. My first semi, well, actually my dump truck was a Peterbilt 357. But my first semi was a W900 Kenworth C15 13 speed. Then I had a Peterbilt 389, which is similar to our T80s. That was a C15 as well with the 18 speed. And my last truck was a 376. That one I set up to be light. It was a 13-liter motor like ours, super singles, and 13-speed transmission. Set up more for mileage than and lightness than anything else.
So when you couldn't handle the big trucks no more, you wanted to want a day cab?
No, when I couldn't handle the traffic and
But it was too big for you. Yeah.
the police. Yeah. Yeah, I went to a yard jockey. That was fun. Did a year of that. Then I'm local shuttle here for the remaining 10 or so years, and then did the coordinator job for a year and a half, and then safety now for 8 months.
What made you want to, transition to kind of an office role, off the road a little bit with us?
Well, one, I was 68 years old, and every day in and out of the truck, it wears on you. And 20 plus years behind the wheel. I love driving. I still moving trucks around. You get in and crank them up. And I think anybody that does this for a living and does it for a long time, you do it because you love driving.
Yeah.
You love driving
You
big
get
rigs, and yeah.
So now that you're in safety, and I know it's 8 months, but yeah, seen a lot of videos. What's the craziest car video that you've seen that did something to one of our trucks?
Actually, it was just yesterday.
Yeah.
We saw one. I teased when John got in yesterday morning because Jody had found the video. It's a white SUV, just like her Nissan.
Sure. Was
So-
it her?
Well,
Because I've
yeah,
seen how she drives.
pretty much. Our guy is exiting the freeway, and as you're going off on the ramp and the road goes this way, they have that area that's still blacktop, and you got your white lines. This individual in a white SUV decides he needed to get in front of him on the ramp, comes whipping around the left side of him, across that paved sloped area, through the mud and there's a puddle there, you see the puddle coming, hits the puddle, everything flies, tire blows, he goes skidding across into the ditch in front of our truck, who fortunately had slowed down enough, saw the guy coming. I mean, he could have drove right through him. And it's like, you just wonder where common sense went in the world, because, you know, at highway speed, an 80,000 pound semi generates just under 1 million pounds of energy. And I don't know anybody that would want that coming through the back window of their car. It's just, doesn't make sense.
It's crazy what they do out there.
Yeah. Pulling in front of you, jam the brakes on the brake check, yeah.
So what's the most common complaint that you get from a four-wheeler?
Between cutting them off, coming back into a lane, and merging.
Yeah.
Merging's probably the most frequent one. And there again, it's the four-wheeling public not understanding the law and procedure of merging. It's a merging vehicle's responsibility to either accelerate and get in front of, or slow down and get in behind the through traffic. And you know, I've in the 8 months I've probably taken 4 calls with people irate about this. You know, he wouldn't let me in and cut me off and didn't slow down, didn't speed up. You know, just kept going. I mean, that's the guy's job. Flip side of that is the potential danger there is from doing that as the truck driver, not hitting your brakes, let the person in. I know it's frustrating. I mean, I've said things I probably shouldn't have said in a cab over the years from people doing that. And it's one of the hardest things of going from having driven to the job I have now. I understand the frustration, and I know what makes them do the things they do. And then to have to coach now and say, you know, that's not something that's acceptable. And it wasn't acceptable when I was doing it, but you know, I understand all day. You know, you drive for 11 hours, and especially if you're city driving, you're in traffic, and you know, it's constantly happened to you, and you get to a point where enough's enough, and it's difficult. You know, it's people don't understand, the regular motoring public, how difficult the job is. You know, we're just driving on the road holding the steering wheel, and it's not, you know.
And the biggest problem is the cell phones where they're not paying attention.
Yep.
They have no clue until they look up and they're
Yep.
oh boy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Drive.
It's that like, what do you think the percentage of people that actually don't even know like the merging rules? Like I don't know. Like even in my POV, like you're on your way home and people just they merge and they just put their blinker on and they just start turning, and there's car in front of you, behind you,
Right.
and it's like, what do you want me to do? I just think it's a low percentage of people.
I would say
it
would be unreasonable to
Same
say.
thing in a roundabout. Like you're in a roundabout, some people don't even look. You know what I mean? You're in there and you can see them just about to go. It's
164
so
mile
frustrating.
racetracks. You know,
Yes.
and I've said to the peak guys I've road tested that we've talked about roundabouts, the trainees I've had, Wisconsin, when they started them, and they started doing them when I had the dump truck, and that's 20 years ago. There was absolutely no public information on how do you navigate a roundabout. They just started building them, and everybody kind of, well, what do we do here? You know, people come up, they think it's a stop sign, stop, when they could merge and go through. You know, there's no understanding of the right way to do it, I think.
No, I mean, they just kind of appeared, and there's yield signs, and people have been driving on the same roads for 40 years, had no idea how to manage them, and then
I think
it's a bit of a problem.
As the truck driving situation, we're fortunate that the state took the initiative to say that a Class 8 vehicle has the right of way once you're in there.
But how many people know that?
Well, no, exactly, or care.
Right.
You know, that's the other thing. We're in a society where it's, hey, I worry about me, and to heck with you, and you know, you end up in wrecks, and so.
Exactly.
All right. One thing I want to talk about, kind of a discussion topic for you two especially. So, as part of my role here, I travel to schools all the time, talk to new graduates. I'd say I'm always the worst recruiter when I come there because I like to just tell them truths and hey, you should just want to drive for PTI if you have the right information, right? It's not always the best sales pitch. But really what I noticed is no one talks to these students and new drivers about like a career. And I think it's a good topic for you guys because you've kind of made it, you know what I mean? Like you ran your own business with it for a while, and then you came into the office. You've done so many different roles with us now. You're kind of driver instructor / driving, like depending on what we need, right? And I think it's just interesting because you ask everyone in the classrooms, right? Like, what do you guys want to do? 5 years, what's your plan? Every single one raise their hand, says owner operator, and that's half of what they want to do now. And carriers are so fast, and I'm not trying to badmouth any carriers, but there's so many carriers so fast to sign you up to be a lease to own driver or sign you up on a contract. And it's just a scary situation when you don't want to drive. Like, and I guess my viewpoint on it is you should come with a carrier like us or there's other carriers that are respectable too, just to learn how to drive, right? Because like people go to a technical college to become a construction, get a construction degree, right? You don't get your associate's degree and then immediately start your own business, right? You work with someone, learn the trade, and then come on. But in this industry, it's just feeding you to the wolves sometimes. They come out of school and they say, lease to own, do this. And
because they're making more money selling trucks than they are with the truck moving down the road.
Exactly.
It's more than just driving a truck. It's learning the business, and then in this business, there's so many different things. From reefer to flatbed to what we do. That's a whole different beast on each operation here. What you do in maintenance. You know what it's like to be an owner operator. It's not an easy gig. First you gotta learn the business first to even know if this is something you even want to do.
Right, that's the whole point, right? There's a good time, first off, in the industry, right? There's a good time to get into this business. There's a good time to get out. There's a good time to buy a truck. There's a good time to sell a truck. And usually those are the opposite, right? Like trucks are really cheap right now. It's a good time to buy a truck, but the interest rates are still kind of high. And then rates are terrible right now. But 2 years ago, truck prices were so high, it wasn't good to buy a truck. And rates were good. It just, you really got to understand it. And
just the fact of being a one-off owner operator versus us at 1,000 trucks, Rail at 10,000 trucks, Schneider at 40,000 trucks, who's got the buying power? We purchase fuel in, $1 million blocks, whatever it is. You're buying it pump price by the gallon when you're an owner operator. I had a conversation early on when we started. I started with Jeff at a driver meeting just about that and how he purchased fuel in blocks. And at that time, and that's 12 years ago, it was 70, 80, I can't remember exactly, 90 cents a gallon cheaper than pump price. So, I'm out here paying $2 a gallon as an owner operator, and PTI's running at $1.10 a gallon. Doesn't take long to figure out who's making money and who's not.
Right. I guess what's important, right, is like all those people coming out of school, they shouldn't feel like it can't be a dream to be an owner operator. Like it's absolutely something. Like if I was going to drive, right, that's something I'm probably going to strive for to get my own stuff. But at least here, I think we're set up where we can train you how to do. I mean, you're the one training them right away, especially. But you train people how to get their MPG lower because it takes a while, right? Like you guys are both driving. Like how long did it take before you really fine tune how to get a perfect MPG? And then also the other part of that is maintenance, right? Like if you don't know how to fix stuff on your truck, and you're going to buy a used truck likely right away, right? And it's going to have issues. And certain programs, they're going to just charge you a maintenance cost. Plus, they're going to charge you certain carriers will charge you like, hey, just because we had to handle the maintenance, there's almost like a handling fee to get you to the right place.
Right.
Versus if you know people in maintenance that can fix your truck for you, or you can start fixing stuff yourself or diagnose the problems yourself, so you're a step ahead. But how long do you think that typically takes? And do you think we have the right programs here to get people that path forward if that's where they want to go?
Xavier Williams is a perfect example. I had him as a trainee And I'm 3-4 years driving here. Decided he and his girlfriend wanted to do the
Gabby, right?
Gabby
Yep.
wanted to do the owner-operator route, and I think they've got, 3-4 trucks now?
Yeah, they probably have the fanciest cars you've ever seen.
Yeah, well, yeah. You know, work hard and play hard, but
Right.
you know, and I think he did it the right way. He got in here, he saw what it was like, drove enough to know that, hey, this is something I want to do. Because my first truck, my first semi, I paid, I think, $85,000 for that W9. Right now, a brand new truck's almost $200,000.
Yeah.
You know, and even used ones, you know, if you can get them for $100,000, you know, it's a used vehicle, and like you said, with maintenance programs and all that, that's great. But if you drive 100 miles down the road and you have no idea whether you're going to get 100 miles or 100,000 out of that truck before that motor goes, you know, now you're looking at $30,000, $45,000 to put a new motor in a truck that you drove 100 miles, and that's the risk you take by buying something used. You don't know where it's been, how it's been treated, and yeah, I mean, you can make a living doing it. The last 5 years pulling propane tanker, I made good money, but I was gone Monday to Friday. I ran 2,800 to 3,200 miles a week, and mostly in Wisconsin. You know, so you're pounding it, and you gotta love doing it because you know it can get old real fast.
Yeah. You know, I went the opposite direction. I looked at it and I just didn't think it was worth it. You know, the commitment, the headache, the stress. I always seen all my buddies, that's all they did on their spare time is work on that truck.
Yeah.
It was almost like a farm job, 7 days a week. You never got away from it, you know. So yeah, you can't always look at the you know, they all want to talk gross, but what was your bottom line?
Yeah.
You know, and you know, if you do this job right too, you can make pretty good money as a company driver too. So it depends on what you want, you know, in life and that. So
Yeah, you're gonna get out of it what you put into it.
oh, exactly.
Coming here, I went 4 and 4, and then I went to Monday to Friday, and the Monday to Friday 12-hour gig, I was making as much money as I did being an owner operator. But you have to put the hours in. I mean, you can't come here and work 40 hours and think that, you know, you're going to make the same as you were grossing 300,000 with your truck and putting 70 hours in a week. You know, if you don't put it in, you're not going to get it out.
Right.
Good time to make a plug. We have 4 and 4 off schedules on Monday through Friday available. So head over to driveforpti.com, check out all our jobs and different career paths, right? Because if you do want to become an owner operator, or maybe have a career in transportation in the office after you drive for a while, I mean, proof's in the pudding here that, you know, we can set you up for both things. So check us out online, give us a call if you're interested.
Yeah, and just the variety of driving positions that are available that you can move freely when you decide, oh, I don't like this, maybe I'll try that. You know, if you got a good driving record and, you know, want to do the work, you know, there's a lot of opportunity.
Yeah.
And we'll feed you hot wings.
And you can have hot wings. Real hot wings.
All right. Last question. We ask this to everyone that comes on. It's been 2 people so far, so. But you know, what drives you? What motivates you? You know, as a person, what's your real passion?
At this point in my life, it's my grandkids. Just having the time available on the weekends to spend as much time with them as I can and help nurture them along and get the hugs and pretty much.
Are you gonna share your favorite hunting spots?
Door County.
Are you gonna take them though?
Oh, they've been.
Yeah?
Yeah, they love it. We go up there and they help me change cards in my trail cameras and crawl up in the redneck. And my grandson and I look for sheds. And
Is it more for the deer or the bears?
deer.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for coming on with us. I
You're
appreciate
welcome.
it.
Glad to be here.
I learned way more about oil rigs than I ever thought I would.